"Look what the wind brought us today," sneered Eleanor Ashford, director of the prestigious Metropolitan Cultural Center, as she peered through the tinted glass window of her corner office. Down below in the marble plaza, a tiny figure moved. With impossible grace, a child whose fluid, mesmerizing movements seemed to defy every hardship life had thrown her way. 10-year-old Amara Williams danced like she was born for music itself. Her small feet barely made a sound against the cold stone, yet every step carried the weight of dreams too big for such little shoulders. Passers-by stopped mid-stride, transfixed by the sight of this child creating magic from nothing but movement and hope. A few coins clinked into her worn baseball cap, the only thing standing between her and another hungry night. Welcome to the Black Side Stories. Before we continue, tell me in the comments from which city in the world are you watching this video today. And if you believe stories like this deserve to be remembered, subscribe to our channel and help us share their stories. Amara had never imagined that at 10 years old, she'd be dancing on street corners to survive. 3 years ago, she still believed in fairy tales, believed that talent was enough, that dreams came true for little girls who practiced until their feet bled. The same institution, now towering above her, had once been her mother's sanctuary. The place where Keisha Williams had earned a full scholarship before prejudice stole her future. The irony cut deeper than winter wind. Amara danced better than any paying student inside those gilded walls, but her dark skin and empty pockets kept her locked outside, pressing her face against glass she'd never be allowed to break. "Call security," Eleanor commanded her assistant, adjusting her pearl necklace with practiced disdain. "This performance is disturbing our patrons. We have the annual Elite Gala tonight, and we simply cannot have this sort of atmosphere contaminating our environment." Eleanor had built her 30-year career on a simple principle: keep the undesirable elements away from art. For her, culture was a matter of pedigree and bank accounts, not the raw, untamed talent that now threatened her perfectly curated world. The sight of this black child dancing with technical perfection in front of her establishment felt like a personal insult to everything she'd worked to maintain. 3 security guards emerged from the building, their heavy footsteps echoing against marble as they approached the small dancer. "Hey you," shouted the largest guard, his voice booming across the plaza. "Stop that right now. This is private property." Amara's feet stilled, but her chin lifted with a dignity that seemed impossible for someone so young. "I'm on the public sidewalk," she replied, her voice clear despite her trembling hands. 3 years of survival had taught her to know her rights, even when the world seemed determined to strip them away. "I'm not doing anything wrong. You're disturbing our customers," the guard snarled, deliberately kicking her cap. Coins scattered across the stone like broken dreams, rolling into gutters and storm drains. "Get out of here before we call the police, kid." It was at that precise moment that destiny arrived in the form of a sleek black sedan. David Chun, a tech mogul whose empire stretched across 3 continents, was driving his 12-year-old daughter Sophia to another physical therapy session. Sophia, who'd been born with cerebral palsy, had lost almost all enthusiasm for treatment in recent months. Her world had grown smaller with each failed attempt to walk normally, each pitying look from strangers. "Daddy, stop the car," Sophia whispered, her voice suddenly alive with wonder for the first time in weeks. Through the tinted window, she watched the scene unfold with the clarity that only children possess. "That little girl, she dances like the angels Mama used to tell me about." David pulled over, and father and daughter witnessed something that would change their lives forever. They watched as Amara knelt on cold stone, gathering her scattered coins with a grace that transformed humiliation into quiet revolution. There was something in the child's movements, a refusal to be broken, a light that persecution couldn't extinguish. "Why are they being mean to her, Daddy?" Sophia asked, her small hands pressed against the glass. Despite her own physical challenges, she possessed an emotional intelligence that often surprised adults. "She's just dancing. Dancing is beautiful." But what truly captured Sophia's attention was how Amara stood after collecting her coins, looked directly at the security guards, and whispered something that made all 3 men step backward as if she'd cast a spell. "You'll remember this moment," Amara had said, her voice carrying a strange certainty for someone so young. "One day, "You'll wish you had been kinder." There was something prophetic in her words, something that suggested this small girl understood forces beyond her years. As she walked away, carrying her few belongings in a tattered backpack, her eyes briefly met Sophia's through the car window. In that instant, something indefinable passed between them, a recognition that transcended age, race, and circumstance. Both children had spent their lives being looked at differently. Sophia with pity because of her disability, Amara with suspicion because of her skin color and circumstances. In each other's eyes, they found something rare and precious, genuine acceptance. Eleanor Ashford, watching from her ivory tower, smiled with cold satisfaction. "Problem solved," she muttered, unaware that she had just made the most catastrophic mistake of her career. She couldn't imagine that this same child she'd just humiliated would soon become the catalyst for a reckoning that would shake her empire to its foundations. There was something unsettling about Amara's composure as she walked away. She didn't seem surprised by the cruelty, as if she'd expected it, planned for it even. More disturbing still was the calculating quality of her calmness, suggesting this wasn't just another random humiliation, but a carefully observed piece of a much larger puzzle. If this story of a brave little girl facing impossible odds has touched your heart, don't forget to subscribe to our channel. What you're about to discover about the power of community, courage, and the transformative magic of believing in a child will completely change how you see the world. 3 sleepless nights had passed since the Plaza incident, but David Chin couldn't erase the image of that small dancer from his mind. Sophia had asked about the angel girl every day, and something deep in his father's heart told him this meeting was more than coincidence. "Mr. Chun, this is highly unusual," protested Harrison, his assistant, as they drove through downtown searching for a 10-year-old they barely knew. "You don't know anything about this child's situation." But David had made his decision. After 2 hours of searching, they found Amara in Washington Square Park, dancing beside the fountain as afternoon light painted her movements in gold. Sophia practically bounced in her wheelchair when she spotted the small figure. "There she is. There's my angel," Sophia called out as David parked the car. Amara stopped dancing immediately, her body tensing as she recognized the car from 3 days earlier. But something in David's gentle approach and Sophia's radiant smile made her shoulders relax slightly. "You're the dancing girl," David said softly, kneeling to her eye level while Sophia rolled her wheelchair closer. "My daughter couldn't stop talking about you. I'm David, and this is Sophia. Your daddy seems really nice," Amara said, addressing Sophia directly. "Not like those mean men at the fancy building. They were so cruel to you," Sophia replied, her voice carrying a maturity that always surprised adults. "Daddy was really angry when we got home. He said what they did wasn't fair. David made a decision that would change 3 lives forever. How would you like to have dinner at our house tonight? Sophia would love to watch you dance in our garden." That evening, in the manicured gardens of the Chun family mansion, something miraculous began to unfold. Amara, initially overwhelmed by the luxury surrounding her, gradually relaxed as Sophia's genuine enthusiasm drew her out of her shell. She began adapting her movements so Sophia could participate from her wheelchair, creating a dance that included, rather than excluded. David watched in amazement as his daughter laughed, really laughed, for the first time since her mother's death 2 years earlier. But it was during a quiet moment on the garden swing that Amara revealed the deeper currents of her story. "Where did you learn to dance like that?" David asked gently. The shadow passed over Amara's young face. "My mama was a ballerina. She got a scholarship to the Prestige Academy. It's in the same building where those guards were mean to me. But when they found out she was going to have me," her voice trailed off, but her eyes hardened with understanding beyond her years. "People like Eleanor Ashford don't think black girls deserve second chances." David felt his chest tighten. "Eleanor Ashford? The director?" "The very same one," Amara nodded solemnly. "She took away my mama's scholarship before I was even born. Mama died when I was 7, still thinking she wasn't good enough. But I know the truth now." It was then that David began to understand the calculating intelligence behind Amara's young eyes. This wasn't just a homeless child dancing for survival. This was someone carrying the weight of generational injustice, someone with a purpose that ran deeper than her years should allow. Meanwhile, Eleanor was implementing new security measures at the cultural center. She'd hired additional guards and installed facial recognition cameras, all programmed with one specific target: a 10-year-old black girl who dared to dance outside her pristine establishment. "We cannot allow disruptions like that again," Eleanor declared to her board. "Our reputation depends on maintaining certain standards of appropriateness." What Eleanor didn't know was that her actions were being carefully documented. Over the past 3 years, Amara hadn't just been surviving. She'd been learning, watching, and connecting with people who cared about justice. Community activists, civil rights lawyers, and investigative journalists had taken notice of the bright child who spoke with startling clarity about institutional racism. "You're very smart for someone so young," Sophia commented during one of Amara's regular visits to the mansion. Amara smiled mysteriously. "My mama used to say that when the world tries to make you small, you have to get bigger on the inside. Smart is just another way of getting bigger." Then she showed David something that made his blood run cold: a folder containing documents, photographs, and testimonies about Eleanor Ashford, collected by community advocates over the past 2 years. "How did activists get access to all this?" David asked, leafing through suspicious financial records and a damning paper trail of rejected applications. "When you're invisible, you see and hear a lot," Amara said with wisdom that belied her age. "And when good people believe your story, they help you prove it's true." The evidence was devastating. Eleanor hadn't just destroyed Keisha Williams' dreams 17 years ago. She'd systematically denied opportunities to dozens of talented young people of color, maintaining the cultural center as an exclusive club for the white elite. While David processed this revelation, Sophia was making extraordinary progress. Her weekly dance sessions with Amara had translated into remarkable physical improvements that astounded her medical team. "It's as if she's found her motivation again," Dr. Williams observed. "The emotional connection seems to be unlocking physical potential we didn't know existed." But while everyone celebrated Sophia's progress, something even more significant was building toward a crescendo. The annual Elite Charity Gala was approaching, the same event Eleanor had been protecting when she'd first ordered Amara's removal. This year's gala would be the largest in the institution's history, with unprecedented media coverage and political attendance. Amara, now a regular fixture in the Chun household, had grown close enough to David to share her deepest truth. "Mr. David, I don't just want people to know what happened to my mama and me. I want to make sure it never happens to any other little girl ever again." David looked at this remarkable child, 10 years old, homeless, orphaned, yet carrying herself with the dignity of someone who understood that her personal pain could become a catalyst for systemic change. In that moment, he knew exactly what needed to happen. The evening of the Elite Charity Gala had arrived, and the Metropolitan Cultural Center buzzed with the energy of wealth and influence. Eleanor Ashford glided through the main ballroom in a designer gown worth more than most people's annual salary, accepting compliments from millionaire donors and political power brokers. Tonight would crown her 30-year career with the largest donation in the institution's history. "Ladies and gentlemen," Eleanor announced into the microphone, her voice dripping with satisfaction, "tonight we celebrate not just artistic excellence, but the preservation of cultural standards that have made this institution a beacon of refinement for 3 decades." The audience of social elites applauded politely, champagne glasses glinting under crystal chandeliers. None of them suspected they were about to witness the most dramatic reversal of fortune in the city's cultural history. "Before we announce tonight's historic donation," Eleanor continued, "I'd like to recognize our most generous patron, Mr. David Chun." David rose from his table, but instead of the customary brief thank you speech, he walked purposefully toward the stage. Sophia, in her prettiest dress and using her new walking braces, insisted on accompanying him to the microphone. The audience assumed this was a touching father-daughter moment. "Thank you, Eleanor," David began, his voice carrying clearly through the sound system. "Before I discuss donations, I'd like to share a story about what true artistic excellence really looks like, and what happens when prejudice tries to destroy it." Eleanor felt the first cold flutter of unease. Something in David's tone suggested this wasn't going according to her carefully planned script. 3 weeks ago, David continued, "My daughter and I witnessed an extraordinary moment of both beauty and cruelty. We saw a 10-year-old black child dancing with technical perfection on the public sidewalk outside this very building. And we watched as security guards, acting on orders from this institution's leadership, humiliated and expelled her for the crime of being black, talented, and visible. The ballroom fell silent. Eleanor tried to step toward the microphone, her face draining of color, but David's next words froze her in place. But the story becomes even more devastating when we discover that this same child is the daughter of Keisha Williams, a brilliant dancer whose scholarship to this institution was canceled 17 years ago by then Assistant Director Eleanor Ashford, specifically because she was pregnant with a black child. A giant screen descended behind the stage, and the audience gasped as historical documents appeared. A letter from 2008, signed by Eleanor, canceling Keisha Williams' scholarship with the justification that pregnant women, particularly those from troubled backgrounds, do not represent the image of excellence our institution strives to maintain. Eleanor's voice cracked as she tried to defend herself. That was a different time. Policies have changed, have they? David pressed a remote control, and the screen filled with recent correspondence. In the past 5 years alone, Eleanor Ashford has rejected 47 scholarship applications from qualified students of color while approving white students with significantly lower scores. The evidence was methodically devastating. Email chains discussing cultural fit, budget documents showing diversity programs defunded and their money redirected to administrative needs, audio recordings of board meetings where Eleanor's voice could be clearly heard saying, "We must be selective about the types of families we invite into our community. Standards exist for a reason." The audience, journalists, politicians, and social media influencers began frantically documenting everything. Camera phones emerged throughout the ballroom. Sophia, small but mighty in her leg braces, took the microphone with both hands. "My friend Amara taught me that dancing doesn't have a color," she said, her child's voice cutting through the adult's complex justifications like a blade. "She helped me learn to walk again just by believing in me. But you kicked her out because her skin was different from yours." The brutal simplicity of a child's truth hit the room like a physical force. Those recordings were taken out of context. Eleanor protested desperately. "I've dedicated my life to preserving artistic integrity. You've dedicated your life to gatekeeping," came a clear, strong voice from the back of the ballroom. Every head turned as the main doors opened and Amara Williams walked in, wearing an elegant dress that David had chosen for her hair braided with care by Sophia herself. Behind her walked a delegation that made Eleanor's knees weak. Community leaders, civil rights attorneys, former scholarship candidates who'd been rejected, and investigative journalists who'd been building this case for months. "You preserved artistic integrity by keeping it away from people who look like me," Amara said, walking down the center aisle with a poise that silenced the room. At 10 years old, she carried herself like someone who understood she was making history. The final revelation shattered Eleanor's world completely. Financial documents flashed on the screen showing that she had systematically embezzled funds intended for diversity and outreach programs, more than $400,000 over 5 years, redirecting them to her personal accounts and lavish office renovations. "You didn't just exclude us," David declared, his voice echoing through the stunned ballroom. "You stole money that was supposed to create opportunities for the very communities you kept out." Eleanor collapsed into a nearby chair, watching her career, reputation, and freedom disintegrate in real time. The audience that had applauded her minutes earlier now stared with expressions ranging from disgust to horror. Amara finally took the stage, and in that moment, every person in the room understood they were witnessing something extraordinary. This small girl, who should have been broken by systemic cruelty, stood before them as living proof that talent, dignity, and truth could triumph over institutionalized hatred. "For 17 years, you destroyed dreams," Amara said, her young voice carrying the weight of generational pain. "My mama died thinking she wasn't good enough. How many other mamas carried that guilt to their graves?" The hashtag Eleanor Ashford Exposed was already trending worldwide. Within hours, the story would be covered by major networks, discussed in Congress, and become a case study in business schools about the catastrophic cost of institutional racism. I could have wanted revenge, Amara concluded, her words carrying wisdom that seemed impossible from someone so young. But instead, I chose to build something better. Starting today, this center will have new owners, a new mission, and a new promise. True art belongs to everyone. David announced that he was purchasing the Metropolitan Cultural Center and transforming it into the Keisha Williams Institute for Inclusive Arts, with a full scholarship program and Amara as its youngest ever artistic consultant. Eleanor was led away by the same security guards who had humiliated Amara weeks earlier. Her last sight was of the small girl she'd tried to erase, now standing center stage, receiving a thunderous ovation from an audience that finally understood what genuine excellence looked like. As the applause continued and the old world crumbled around them, a new reality took shape, one where a 10-year-old's courage had proven that authentic greatness recognizes no boundaries, fears no prejudice, and ultimately transforms even the hardest hearts through the simple, revolutionary power of treating every child as worthy of their dreams. 6 months later, 10-year-old Amara Williams stood in the main rehearsal hall of the newly renamed Keisha Williams Institute, leading a masterclass for 60 young dancers from every background imaginable. Her scholarship program had attracted talent from across the nation, transforming the institution into a beacon of inclusive excellence. Sophia Chun, now walking confidently with minimal assistance, sat in her favorite spot in the front row. The progress she'd made through dance therapy with Amara had revolutionized pediatric treatment approaches at children's hospitals nationwide. Eleanor Ashford opened another job rejection letter in her studio apartment, the consequences of her choices, having stripped away everything she'd built through prejudice and exclusion. The cultural world had completely rejected her, making her name synonymous with institutional racism and corruption. During a national television interview, Amara was asked how someone so young had found the strength to challenge such powerful forces. "When they tried to make me invisible," she replied with a smile that had inspired millions, "I decided to become so bright that the whole world would have to see me, and everyone who looks like me." The camera panned to the Institute's entrance, where a bronze plaque bore Keisha Williams' image and these words: "Dreams have no color, no class, no limits. Only hearts courageous enough to nurture them." That night, as Amara practiced alone in the studio named for her mother, she whispered to the photograph on the wall, "We did it, Mama. We turned their no into the world's biggest yes." Sometimes the smallest dancers cast the longest shadows, proving that when one child refuses to be diminished, they illuminate the path for countless others to follow. In the end, Amara didn't just change an institution. She changed the very definition of what it means to belong. If this story of courage, justice, and the transformative power of believing in every child's potential has moved you, subscribe to our channel for more stories that prove our greatest strength comes not from where we're born, but from how we choose to rise when the world tries to keep us down. This has been the Black Side Stories. Until next time, remember, behind every great achievement is someone who stood watch, someone who believed, someone who preserved what matters when no one else was looking.